Thanks for tuning in to tonight's special, a great place to raise your family, but only if you really hate your family. I'm Julia. And I'm Julia, with glasses. Tonight we'll be talking about a little neighborhood you've probably never heard of. That's right, we'll be talking about Jacobsville, a neighborhood in Evansville, Indiana. They sure do like their vills in Indiana. They sure do. And what seems to be going on there? Well, it all stems from the pollution they're experiencing from nearby energy plants. Now hang on, this is America. Don't we have laws to deal with pollution like that? We sure do, Julia. It's called the Clean Air Act. Let me tell you about it. The Clean Air Act was enacted by Congress in 1970 to respond to previously failed attempts to curb growing pollution and as a response to the pressures from the modern-day environmental movement. The act aims to lessen the effects of pollution on human health. It regulates pollution from stationary and mobile sources, but the ones at issue here are those stationary sources. So what is a stationary source, Julia? Great question. A stationary source can be a lot of things. Here, it's energy producers, mainly coal-fired power plants. But it could be really any sort of factory. Wow, so we really have a lot of stationary sources in our country. How can only one act regulate them all? Well, the Clean Air Act is very lengthy and complex. It relies on federal and state implementation to ensure that its many standards are met. The main standard here is the National Ambient Air Quality Standard, or NAAQS. These are caps set for the criteria pollutants, which are deemed by the federal government. There's an overarching goal to be met for those pollutants. There are some emission standards involved in the act. That's how the hazardous air pollutants are regulated. Those are a big deal here in our story. We'll get to those a bit later on tonight. It's up to each state to create something called the State Implementation Plan. That's basically how a state plans to meet and enforce those standards just in their state. And then each stationary source that wants to set up in any state must apply for a Title V permit, which lays out how the source has and will continue to meet that state's SIP requirements, as well as any additional requirements that are laid out for that source. So if Indiana has the state implementation plan and permits for all its polluters, why is there still so much pollution there? Well, this area is known as a sacrifice zone. This means that everyone turns a blind eye to the pollution there and its effects because of the benefits of these large polluters. There are 8 of America's largest polluters within 30 miles of Evansville, Indiana. 4 of those are super polluters, which emit 12.3 million pounds of toxic compounds and 50 million metric tons of greenhouse gases in that region. Before all these toxins can affect people, they travel through the environment. They're sprayed into the air, and from there they enter the water and the soil. And Southwest Indiana is very environmentally diverse. There's forests, marshes, mountains, valleys, even fossil beds and agriculture. The 11 counties in this area boast many different ecosystems, as well as a population of 474,251 people. The area is a transition zone from deciduous forest to prairie lands and often experiences easterly winds. Those winds carry the pollution from that sacrifice zone throughout the entire state of Indiana, degrading its entire environment and its reputation. Indiana has ranked 48th for quality of life, 46th for its natural environment, and 42nd for its eco-friendliness. Indiana also boasts a ranking of 6th worst toxic chemical releases, 1st for coal ash ponds, and 46th for air quality. Those horrible rankings are all a result of the pollution that is produced just in Southwest Indiana. We'll get into how the neighborhood of Jacobsville is specifically affected right after this commercial break. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm just enjoying this beautiful day here in Evansville, Indiana, with some peace of mind because I have my Apple inhaler. Just hook this bad boy up to the app on your phone and it will start beeping before you stop breathing. That's right, this smart inhaler detects your asthma attacks before they start. So all you have to do is hold it up to your mouth and it will administer your 90 milligrams of albuterol sulfate for you, so you could keep enjoying this beautiful Evansville weather. Thanks for tuning back in. Let's get right back to it. Jacobsville was declared a Superfund site in 2004 because of the high levels of arsenic and lead found in their soil and drinking water. Cleanup in this area did not begin until 2017 and is currently still ongoing. Arsenic and lead are both hazardous air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. They're found in very large amounts here. Arsenic is a highly mobile toxin. Once it enters the water, it could kill off fish and plants in very large numbers, even wiping out entire populations. But luckily, that isn't an issue here. That's right. Here, the concern is arsenic in the soil. Because of the arsenic in the soil, Jacobsville has experienced issues with growing anything from hobby gardens to large-scale agriculture. This has caused a ripple effect throughout the entire local ecosystem. The lack of primary production has led to die-offs in primary consumers, animals like rabbits and squirrels. This is going to eventually lead to die-offs in the animals that rely on those creatures as prey, such as large birds or coyotes. And unfortunately, arsenic isn't the only issue here. Lead is also found in large amounts in the soil in Jacobsville. Lead will stay in the ecosystem until it is removed, which is why the cleanup efforts are so important. Lead has many of the same effects as arsenic on this ecosystem. The lead pollution in Jacobsville has also led to plant die-offs because lead impedes plant growth by slowing ATP production and disrupting photosynthesis. The ecological effects this causes are the same as arsenic. These compounding effects threaten to deteriorate the natural environment in Jacobsville. Hopefully these cleanup efforts in the area will be done soon. But it seems like unless the pollution is lessened, this is just gonna happen again. You're absolutely right. And that's why there needs to be some changes to the Clean Air Act for the first time since 1990. One major change should be to update the purpose of the act to include environmental protection. This ensures that agencies and states approach Clean Air Act provisions with environmental protection in mind. This will also make sure that courts consider this in cases that aim for environmental protection based on the Clean Air Act. There should also be an amendment to the Clean Air Act to ensure no new sacrifice zones are created and to ensure that the ones that already exist are cleaned up. The act should include a definition of sacrifice zone and provisions for cleaning existing ones. Perhaps under CERCLA, these existing areas should also be the main focus for a switch to clean energy production, and displaced workers in these areas should be given first priority for those new clean jobs. Wow, maybe then Jacobsville would finally be a great place to raise your family. Thanks for tuning in tonight, but before we let you go, let's head to Teddy and Olivia with weather and traffic. We really gotta stop letting them do catnip at work. Good night, America.